Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the GSMC Basketball Podcast presented by the GSMC Sports Network. As always, I'm your host, Mara Fatemi. Getting into our next segment here, we're going to talk a little bit about Tyrese Haliburton being called "quote unquote" the most overrated player in the NBA right now. Um, yeah, he heard all of that. He heard all of the noise about him, all of the trash talk that his peers around the NBA in that questionnaire that filled it out, naming him that pretty much he got the most votes for most overrated player in the league. To get that title and then perform the way he has heard all of the noise, and he has performed at a high level throughout these playoffs, leading the Pacers to a first round series win over the Milwaukee Bucks, coming back in a closeout game from down 20 points, coming back to win the game on a game-winning shot over Giannis. That is Tyrese Haliburton. That was only a taste. Game one, showing up, hitting clutch three after clutch three in the fourth quarter. Game two, starting out a little bit quieter, only finishing with 19 points, but finishing the game with an absolute clutch 3-point shot over Max Strus at the top of the key. In a game, in a situation where you could have just drove the ball, and gotten a layup, gotten an open lane to the hoop. You decide to take a step back three, roll the dice on the game winner, and that is all she wrote. A game-winning three from Tyrese Haliburton last night, and it pretty much solidifies him as probably the most underrated player in the NBA playoffs right now. This is a guy that is averaging a double-double right now with points and assists. A guy that is probably able to average a triple-double if he wanted to with rebounds. I would not be shocked if we see a triple double out of him at some point in these playoffs, just because of his height, his length. He's able to get those rebounds if he wants to. Um, I'm curious to see if he's a little bit hobbled because we did see him go down in at the end of game two. Late in that fourth quarter, he went down after a take to the basket, just grabbing that right ankle. So it's gonna be interesting to see how that ankle is, if that ankle is 100%. But it didn't show itself last night. It showed itself in brief moments, but in terms of his play, it did not show itself. Tyrese Haliburton is still one of the best players in the league, in my opinion, and he's probably I'm serious when I say he's probably the most underrated player in the NBA playoffs right now. Um, Plain and simple. In the regular season, I can understand why he's labeled the most overrated player, just because his scoring efficiency takes a dip. As well, on top of that, a, a he had a little bit of a slump to start the season, averaging about I think he only averaged about 15 points a game. We saw a lot of single digit scoring games out of him. We saw double digit assists, and that's what we know he can do. But in terms of scoring the basketball, he was struggling on doing that. And I can understand why you would think he's the most overrated player in the league with those signs shining through and through. But in the playoffs, this is the second year in a row that he's showed up and turned up the heat in the playoffs. Right now, he's averaging over 20 points a game in the playoffs, scoring at a high level, assisting at a high level, being able to facilitate. When you're able to continue your facilitating game, being able to start and kickstart this offense whenever you want, but you're able to be that guy that can be a reliable shot maker down the stretch. When you have a guy on your team and you're the coach and you can say, "Hey Tyrese, go get me a basket," and he's one of those guys that you can just be like, get the put the ball in your hands, go get me a bucket, stop the bleeding. The other team is on a momentum swing. We need you to get a bucket here. That is the type of guy that Tyrese Haliburton is, and that is what the Indiana Pacers did last night, chipping it away from 10 points to 9 points, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, all the way down. That is what they did. The Cavs would go down to make a layup with Donovan Mitchell or get to the free throw line, and then the Pacers would on the next possession, would get to the paint, score a layup or score a 3-pointer or score a layup, get a basket, and then get an and one. Get fouled while making the basket to get a 3-point play. That happened countless times in the fourth quarter last night in the final 10 minutes of the game. And that comes down to the star play of Tyrese Haliburton, who did that multiple times. Of course, Siakam gets some recognition. Miles Turner gets recognition. Aaron Nesmith gets recognition for hitting tough threes. But this is about also Tyrese Haliburton, putting these guys in places to succeed, taking some of the load off of them, taking some of the pressure off of them late in the game, putting the ball in his hands, taking control of the game by himself late in the games, and then getting his guys open for pick and pop shots, letting the offense flow through him. That is letting the offense flow through him and then branch off into the guys around him. That is what Tyrese Haliburton does. That is how he makes the guys around him better. And that is the biggest compliment that we can give to Tyrese Haliburton. The only time we have said something similar is to guys like LeBron James, guys like Michael Jordan, guys like Steph Curry, guys like, even if we want to talk about James Harden back in the day with the Houston Rockets, even if we want to talk about present day with Nikola Jokic and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, these are names that we're comparing Tyrese Haliburton to in terms of offensively. These are the guys that we're comparing him to. And to even be in that conversation just continues to prove why he's one of the most underrated players in the league. But because I promise you, until today, we're probably going to see some today in terms of the media talking about him in this way. But I don't think we can discuss Tyrese Haliburton as the quote-unquote overrated player in the league after last night. Last night pretty much bona fide him as one of the most underrated players in the league right now. Whether you want to call it recency bias or not. This is not me saying it's recency bias. Media may call it recent. Media have been talking a lot of ESPN. The big sports networks have been talking about Cleveland, one of the best teams in the NBA, going to go to the NBA playoff finals. They're the best team in the NBA playoffs right now. They're going to knock off the Indiana Pacers in 5-6 games. No chance. Pacers have no chance. I sat here and I said, the Pacers are the biggest dark horse threat outside of the Cavs and the Celtics in the East to win the East. The Pacers are going to knock off the Bucks. The Pacers are going to knock off the Cavs. They're an incredibly deep, young team with a young core led by a player like Tyrese Haliburton, who is Magic Johnson-esque offensively. Being able to pass the ball, being able to score the ball, being able to rebound when he wants. He doesn't rebound as much like Magic does. And I'm not take defense out of the equation because Magic's defense is what separates him from everybody in terms of point guard play. But Tyrese Haliburton, offensively, being able to score the ball, being able to get to the basket, making magical layups. The way he's able to get to the basket and just finesse the ball to the basket, late in games especially. Being able to pass the ball the way he does. Being able to facilitate the way he does. He plays very Draymond Green-esque from back in the day when Draymond Green used to facilitate the offense, let the offense flow through him, get the guys around him open shots. But this is nowhere near the offensive play of Draymond Green. This is the offensive play of somebody like a Damian Lillard, like a Steph Curry. He can't shoot the ball like Steph, but like a Damian Lillard specifically. He reminds me so much of Dame time because of his, you can call him Hallie time. The way he's able to come through late in games time and time again, scoring game winner after game winner, hitting clutch shot after clutch shot, keeping your team in it. That is what Tyrese Haliburton does for this Indiana Pacers team. And yeah, this is why he's one of the most underrated players in the league. Overrated, that argument has to be tossed in the trash. That questionnaire has to be erased, burnt, wiped out from any memory that was ever created, because Tyrese Haliburton is one of the best players in the NBA right now. No doubt about it. He's one of the best players in the NBA. He's probably, outside of maybe Jason Tatum, he's probably the best Eastern Conference. He's probably maybe Donovan Mitchell's obviously in the conversation as well. But Tatum, Haliburton, and Donovan Mitchell are the three names in contention for the Larry O'Brien Trophy in the Eastern Conference, for Eastern Conference MVP. He deserves to be in that conversation, and he's one of the best players in the league right now. Plain and simple. The way he's playing, the way the Pacers are playing, the confidence that he's wearing on his chest right now. He's one of the best players. He's one of the scariest players in the league, and the Pacers are one of the scariest teams left in the NBA playoffs. I still believe they have one of the best chances to come out of the Eastern Conference. They're one of the top 4 teams already, but I think Cleveland takes game 3 and game 4, and then Indiana goes back into Cleveland, takes game 5, and then goes back to Indiana and eventually wins game 6. That is if they split in Indiana, I think the series ends in Cleveland in 5 games. But if not, I think the series ends in game 6. That's just my take on it. But yeah, that's just my take on Tyrese Haliburton as a whole. But we'll see how this all transpires. There's still a lot of game left in this series. Only a 2-0 series lead. Job not finished. As the great Kobe Bryant said once upon a time in the press conference, job not finished just because you're up 2-0. What is there to be happy about? Job not finished. Job finished? I don't think so. That's Tyrese Haliburton right now. And he'll be ready to go in game 3. Donovan Mitchell and this Cleveland Cavaliers team better be ready in game 3. If they lose game 3, this series is at risk of being a sweep. Either it's going to be a sweep in 4 games or it's going to be a gentleman's sweep in 5 games, regardless of how it shakes out. So, yeah, that's just my take on it. I apologize for that. I'm going to take one last short break. Coming up next, we're going to take a look at the other game taking place later tonight between the Boston Celtics and the New York Knicks. Game 2, a lot of people expecting. I'll say it. I'm one of the people expecting the Celtics to kind of blow out the Knicks tonight. The Knicks going into Boston in game 1 and knocking off the Celtics. The Celtics playing extremely poor, shooting the ball, playing extremely porous on the defensive end of the ball, turning the ball over. I think this is going to be a comeback game for Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown. I think it's going to be a comeback game for Joe Mazzulla in terms of scheming and getting his guys ready to go for this one. And I would not be shocked if the Celtics come out and just give the Knicks a haymaker that they can't come back from. I say that especially after the Knicks came back from 17 points down in game 1, but I'd be pretty shocked if the Knicks won game 2 tonight. Just saying. I think we're going to monitor the health of Kristaps Porzingis as well in this one. But I'm going to take a short break, and coming up next, we're going to take a look at that series. You're watching the GSMC Basketball Podcast presented by the GSMC Sports Network. Don't go anywhere.